It's April 17th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with Jerome Powell's warning over Trump's tariffs. The head of the U.S. Federal Reserve says tariffs by the Trump administration will hit the U.S. economy and push prices up, while stressing the Fed's patience on rate cuts. As we come on air, the Bank of Korea decided to leave the interest rate as it is at 2.75% in its third monetary policy meeting of the year, over volatile exchange rates for the Korean won against the greenback due to trade uncertainties. A South Korean-led consortium has sealed a contract to carry out an initial design phase for a U.S. research reactor project, marking the very first export of South Korea's reactor technology to the U.S. The Fed chief has voiced concerns and warnings of higher prices and weaker growth, all because of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs. But he did note the central bank will wait and see about future policy moves. Our Park Kwon-woo has our top story.
Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has warned that the Trump administration's recent tariff policies could pose risks to the U.S. economy.
The level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth.
Speaking at the Economic Club of Chicago on Wednesday, Powell said the tariffs are highly likely to cause at least a temporary rise in inflation, adding the impact could be more persistent. While the Fed aims to find a balance between keeping inflation at around 2% and maximizing employment, Powell said tariffs are leading the Fed to move away from those goals.
We will balance our maximum employment and price stability mandates, keeping in mind that without price stability, we cannot achieve the long periods of strong labor market conditions that benefit all Americans.
However, Powell also said the central bank will remain patient, holding off on any policy changes until it has a better understanding of how the current trade policies play out. Following Powell's remarks, U.S. stocks tumbled on Wednesday. The tech-heavy Nasdaq dropped more than 3%, while the S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average also fell by several hundred points. Also on Wednesday, gold prices soared, once even hitting an all-time high of $3,350 per ounce. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
And ahead of South Korea's return for tariff talks with the U.S. scheduled for next week, Japan began its own negotiations with Washington on Wednesday, now with the surprise attendance by Trump. Lee-seung has more.
Top trade officials from Japan arrived in Washington on Wednesday for tariff negotiations with their U.S. counterparts. Tokyo hopes to lower the reciprocal tariff rate of 24% and receive tariff exemptions on steel and automobiles. Japanese Economic Revitalization Minister Ryosei Akizawa, who's leading the talks for Tokyo, expressed optimism before, saying the two countries could have good negotiations that will lead to a win-win situation for both sides. U.S. President Donald Trump also joined in on the trade talks with Japanese officials. Trump took to his social media platform to announce that he would be joining Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick in discussing tariffs and trade. After the talks, Trump wrote on his social media page that it was a great honor to have met with the Japanese delegation, adding that there was big progress made during the talks. Trump's decision to get directly involved in the negotiations also comes as he hinted at a desire to cover issues, including the amount Japan pays towards the cost of stationing U.S. soldiers in Japan. Despite Bessent stressing that there's a first-mover advantage, with more than 75 countries requesting trade talks, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba said earlier this week that Tokyo won't rush to reach a deal, nor does it plan to make major concessions. With South Korea set to hold talks with the U.S. soon, all eyes are on Wednesday's trade talks between Washington and Tokyo, as they could be a litmus test of what's to come for upcoming negotiations. Lee-seung, Arirang News.
This morning, South Korea's central bank held its benchmark interest rate steady at 2.75% as widely expected. It announced a decision on Thursday following the third Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the year, taking a break from a rate-cutting cycle after a 25 basis points cut in February. Unstable exchange rates for the Korean won against the greenback amid trade and political uncertainties had fueled expectations for the rate freeze. Earlier this month, the exchange rate between the won and the U.S. dollar peaked at its highest in 16 years before plummeting to its lowest for the year. Now, let's delve deeper into the central bank's latest monetary call with Professor Lee Yoon-soo this morning. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So, didn't we see the rate freeze coming, Professor?
Yes, the rate freeze was actually widely expected. According to a recent survey, 88% of bond market experts predicted that the BOK would hold the policy rate at 2.75%. Of course, there are rising concerns about slowing economy and trade risk. But several factors the rate got very difficult at this time. We have seen volatility in the exchange rate. Some days the won more than 31 against the dollar. In such environment, cutting the rates would add pressure to the won and lead to the capital outflow. Also, the U.S. Fed Chairman Powell has made it clear that the Fed is in no rush to cut the rate. They will wait until the uncertainty starts. So widening the Korea-U.S. rate gap would also be very key for the Bank of Korea. On top of that, household is rising again, and prices have started to pick up, especially Seoul, city of Seoul, then reinstated land transaction permit system. That policy reversal contributed to the renewed speculation in housing market and added to concerns about the financial imbalances. So these developments ultimately supported a case for holding the rate steady in this meeting.
Although the rate freeze was a widely expected one, a rate cut could have also made sense considering the current economic situation. But today's rate freeze also came largely due to the volatility because of Trump's tariffs, right?
Right. It might have seemed appropriate given the slowing economy, but the Bank of Korea had to weigh other risks. First, financial stability. The BOK wasn't only concerned about trade tensions or tariffs. They also had external risk like exchange rate volatility and also internal risk, particularly the rising household debt for financial stability. Right now, the Korean won has been quite unstable, and cutting rate would put downward pressure on the currency, especially when U.S. rates staying high. At the same time, household debt growing again, and the housing market has shown signs of overheating. So in the Bank of Korea's view, the risk of fueling more financial instability, both in the market externally and household debt internally, was greater than the benefit of easing policy to support the economy. I think that's why they chose to hold the policy rate for now.
Well, I think we are all on the same page when it comes to a great need for economic stimulus. That is why the government is pushing for an extra budget, right?
Yeah, the government is pushing for a supplementary budget, but not only because the economy is weak. One important reason that we have to remember is that the original 2025 budget was shortly cut during the National Assembly review process at the end of last year. The final version passed without bipartisan agreement, and over 1 trillion won was removed, impacting welfare, life funds, AI, and disaster relief program when we had a very severe fires in the larger mountain areas in Korea. That's quite unprecedented in Korea's history, in recent financial history. So I think the extra budget is also about filling the gap but it's aimed at stabilizing short-term demand and protecting key sectors under pressure from tariffs.
I see. Well, we do know that that will tame the local economic situations here in the country. And also, the South Korea is looking to solve tariff issues in the coming week. What else, other than tariffs, matters to stabilize the local economy then?
Tariffs are a major issue, but they are not the only one. One key factor is the U.S. Federal Reserve. Fed Chair Jerome Powell has made it clear that the Fed is in no rush to cut rates.
Right.
If the Fed keep rates high, that limits the BOK's room to maneuver without currency outflows. Domestically, financial risks are rising, especially with household debt and renewed concerns in the real market. More, we also need to look at Korea's long-term structural challenges. Boosting productivity, creating new growth engines, and supporting innovation in sectors like green tech and AI are all critical. A stabilized economy isn't just about risk, I think. It also means laying the ground for the next phase of growth. In that sense, structural reform will be a very important factor in near-term stimulus.
So a rate freeze for now. Professor, do you think a rate cut is possible or even necessary at the next monetary policy meeting in May?
Yes, I'm not sure about a necessity, but a rate cut in May is possible. The BOK is already in an easing cycle, as Bank of Korea governor mentioned yesterday. So this isn't just a one-off pause forever, but part of a broader cautious shift toward more accommodating policy. If economic data continues to weaken as we expect now, and external conditions stabilize as we hope, the case for a rate cut could grow stronger. That said, the BOK is clearly moving very carefully. They are watching the Fed monitoring the exchange rate, eye on household debt and the property market for internal financial stability. So while the direction of policy is clearly easing, the pace depends on how global and domestic risk evolve over time. But I would say that if current trends continue, a cut in May is definitely on the table.
Alrighty, Professor Lee, thank you so much for taking your time to be with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
A South Korean-led consortium has won a contract for the initial phase of a U.S. research reactor project. Now, the consortium is made up of the Korea Atomic Energy Research Institute and Hyundai Engineering, as well as the U.S. nuclear power engineering firm NPR. According to the Ministry of Science and ICT, the consortium signed a deal with the University of Missouri to conduct the initial phase of the Next Generation University of Missouri Research Reactor project. With the deal, South Korea becomes the first country to reverse export technology in the field, 66 years after importing research reactors from the U.S. with Trigo Mark II in July 1959. The sprint to the Liberal Party ticket to the top office is officially in full swing now, with the three contenders from the Democratic Party vowing to run a fair race in their first gathering on Wednesday. Shin Ha-young reports.
As the Democratic Party kicks off its primary race for the 21st presidential election, its three preliminary candidates pledge to compete fairly and come together after the race. On Wednesday, former party leader Lee Jae-myung, Kim Kyung-soo, former Gyeongsang-namdo Province governor, and Kim Dong-yeon, current Gyeonggi-do Province governor, made their first joint appearance since registering for the primary.
For a better life for the people and a hopeful future, the DP and our candidate, whoever that may be, must win this election.
I hope this primary will be a chance to fully showcase the DP's experience and capabilities.
I will give my best through fierce competition and come together to bring real change, beyond just a change in government.
Starting Wednesday, the party will run 4 primaries through April 27th. Chungcheong-do, Gyeongsang-do, Jeolla-do provinces, and the Seoul metropolitan area alongside Gangwon-do province and Jeju. During the regional primaries, dues-paying party members and party delegates will cast their votes, which will account for 50% of the total in selecting the presidential candidate. On the last day in each region, the voting results will be announced. Public polls will be conducted for 2 days, sometimes between April 21st and 27th, and these will account for the remaining 50%. The final candidate will be confirmed on April 27th. All 3 candidates are focusing their policy visions on the economy. Jae-myung's think tank officially launched on Wednesday, outlining a national vision that aims for 3% potential growth, becoming one of the world's top 4 exporters, and creating a gross national income per capita of $50,000 by 2030. Kim Kyung-soo announced his economic policy focused on boosting the AI industry and promoting balanced regional growth, promising 100 trillion Korean won, around $70 billion, in public-private investment over the next 5 years to secure AI leadership and drive industrial change. Kim Dong-yeon, meanwhile, has been emphasizing the so-called 5 big deals to differentiate his economic policies, which includes focusing on balanced regional growth, climate change, and tax reform. 신하영, Arirang News.
And the contender list for the People Power Party has been now narrowed down to 8 from the initial 11. The PPP's race will be quite a competitive one, as only 4 of the 8 will make it to the second round. Our Kim Do-yeon has the details.
After closing the registration for the presidential primary, the People Power Party on Wednesday named 8 contestants, after cutting 3 of the registered but not well-known names for not being up to the public's expectations and standards. As expected, the 8 are Kim Mun-soo, the latest labor minister, 5-term lawmaker Na Kyung-won, 4-term lawmaker An Chol-soo, former lawmaker Yang Yang-ja, Incheon Mayor Yu Jung-bok, Gyeongsang-do Province Governor Lee Cheol-woo, former PPP chair Han Dong-hoon, the latest Daegu mayor Hong Jun-pyo. The chair of PPP's election committee emphasized that it'll manage a fair election.
As election committee chair, I will work with my team to ensure each candidate can freely present their vision in an open, energetic atmosphere. Through honest debate, we aim to select a candidate the people can truly trust to lead the nation.
Without a clear frontrunner, a fierce competition awaits the contestants, but some touch of fun awaits as well to garner support from the young generations. This includes heart monitoring during debates, speed round questions, and self-introductions based on MBTIs. All in all, however, Hwang emphasized party unity amid what could be seen as an uphill battle, an election after its former president was impeached.
Harmony and unity are our core values. To win the public's trust, every candidate must unite, work together, and move forward as one team.
Meanwhile, the 8 contestants released their pledges and were doing media interviews on Wednesday. However, an unexpected key figure was in the spotlight. Seoul Mayor Oh Se-hoon, who pulled out from the primaries, became a popular person to meet. Starting with dinner with Hong Jun-pyo on Tuesday night, the Seoul mayor met with Kim Mun-soo on Wednesday for breakfast, Na Kyung-won in the morning, and An Chol-soo for lunch. The candidates emphasized their visions aligned with the mayor's, which was focused on growth and helping the weak initially when he launched his campaign. This is largely seen as a message to Oh's supporters as he's not in the race anymore. Meanwhile, Han Dong-hoon visited Daegu on Wednesday. Daegu is a conservative stronghold with many eligible electors that account for 50% of the final votes. Meanwhile, after a media day for the candidates on Thursday, series of debates will be held through the weekend. Based on the debates, 4 will survive the cutoff for the next round starting April 22nd. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Time magazine has named South Korea's former Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung and BLACKPINK's Rosé in its 100 most influential people of 2025. In the list revealed on Wednesday, Lee was included in the leaders category, along with U.S. President Donald Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Lee was described as the clear favorite to win the upcoming presidential election. Rosé from K-pop girl group BLACKPINK was also named in the Pioneers category. She was recognized as a dynamic performer and songwriter, praised for captivating massive audiences both as a soloist and a group.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. In the UK, the Supreme Court has made a landmark decision regarding the legal definition of a woman. According to the ruling under the Equality Act 2010, woman refers exclusively to biological sex, excluding transgender people. The unanimous ruling on Wednesday local time stems from a legal challenge by the feminist advocacy group for Women Scotland against the Scottish government's inclusion of transgender women in a 2018 law that mandated 50% female representation on public boards. The court ruled that the definition of a woman should only include biological females. It said that interpreting the definition to include individuals based on gender identity would make the Equality Act inconsistent. However, the decision does not revoke existing protections against discrimination for transgender individuals. Women's rights groups lauded the ruling as a reaffirmation of sex-based rights, while LGBTQ+ organizations expressed concern and disappointment. The French government has announced the expulsion of 12 Algerian diplomatic staff following Algeria's decision to expel 12 French diplomats. This comes after France arrested an Algerian consular official suspected of links to a kidnapping. On Wednesday local time, France's foreign affairs minister said France will expel 12 Algerian diplomatic and consular officials in France and recalled its ambassador from Algiers for consultations. This move comes after Algeria decided to expel 12 French diplomats after France detained an Algerian consular agent linked to a kidnapping case. In 2024, an activist and influencer known as Amir DZ, a critic of the Algerian government, was abducted near Paris and released the following day. French prosecutors have charged 3 Algerian nationals, including the consular official, with kidnapping and terrorist conspiracy. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday met with 3 former hostages held by Hamas who were released in late 2023 and February of this year. Speaking to Alexander Trufanov, who had been held by Hamas in Gaza for 498 days, Putin pledged to continue efforts to secure the release of remaining hostages. Putin also acknowledged years of stable relations with Palestinian representatives as pivotal in facilitating the release of the hostages and extended gratitude to Hamas for what he termed a humanitarian act. Trufanov, whose father was killed during the October 2023 Hamas attack, appealed to Putin to persist in efforts to free others still in captivity. Finally, astronomers have identified a new planet located approximately 120 light-years from Earth that resembles Tatooine, the home planet of Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars movie. The planet appears to orbit a pair of brown dwarfs, or what experts call failed stars, that are too small to shine like the sun. What makes this planet special is that it moves in a completely different direction from how the 2 stars orbit each other, referred to as a polar orbit. Although the planet was not directly seen, scientists spotted its presence by watching the movement of the stars. The author of the study, an astronomer from the University of Birmingham, said there aren't many very young planetary systems like this. This research was published in the journal Science Advances on April 16th.
We had a warmer start to the day. Morning temperatures were nearly 10 degrees Celsius higher in the capital this morning, and the warmth will linger through the afternoon. But temperature gaps will be wider for inland regions. Chungcheong could be seeing a gap of 15 degrees Celsius within a few hours. So get ready to feel quite warm, even a little hot for some of us this afternoon. Taebaek could have a taste of summer with temperatures climbing all the way to 27 degrees Celsius. Seoul topping out at 24 degrees, Daegu at 25 under mostly sunny skies with decent air quality nationwide. But it's going to be another windy day with a wind advisory being in place for Jeju Island. Now we have a rainy weekend ahead again. Rain that starts on Saturday morning will gradually spread to the rest of the country, continuing by Sunday morning. So please take the rainy weather into account and plan accordingly for your weekend.
That is all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.